review the Sondors Fold X. I think this is the 2020 edition. Overall, for a Tower e-bike score, we give this bike a 51. We'll get into the details later here. But 51, which rates it at a good e-bike. And on the specialty score, we give it a 48. It gets a little less there, but I think it's still within the good e-bike rating according to our scale. Why don't we introduce ourselves here, Ray?
All right, I am Ray, the Director of Operations here at Tower E-Bike Repair Shop. Basically the electric and mechanical bike group and bike business for 30 plus years. I'm here to...
And you've been dealing with e-bikes for probably the last 10.
Yes.
So Ray really has deep knowledge in these bikes. He works on hundreds of different brands of bikes and other stuff like that. So we're constantly seeing different bikes. So the way we're doing these reviews is we have our mechanics here just sort of quickly go through a checklist and they'll rate a bike. They take about 20 minutes to rate all aspects of a bike. It's a very structured way that we score these bikes, and we'll really get into that here. My name is Sondors Fold. I'm the founder and CEO of Tower E-Bike Repair Shop. And okay, so let's get into it, Ray. So first, when we make a 100-point score, this is based on 7 sort of attributes. And here's the 7 attributes. The first one is materials quality. How did this bike do on materials quality, Ray?
4 to 5 is pretty much middle of the road. We had a lot of mid to low grade components on the bike. The bike is made out of mostly aluminum. It does have stainless spokes, but it's got a freewheel and it's got a very inexpensive Shimano derailleur and shifting system. It's got some really cheap cranks, cheap pedals. So yeah, it's scored in the middle of the road.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed on this is this has a tire that's like a brand that's not even on our list. It's some cheap Chinese tire brand. So you're going to get some flats on these. It's a way to save money, but it's kind of a stupid thing because flats are a big deal with these. So we give this on a materials quality of 5. And now we get into mechanical quality. On mechanical quality, this bike gets a 2. We can discuss that a little bit.
And again, we've got mechanical disc brakes, which these are really cheap ones. They are just constant maintenance. Every 2 or 3 times you ride, you have to do a mechanical adjustment on the brake itself.
And one thing on the mechanical brakes there is that you really want hydraulic brakes on an e-bike because otherwise you're going to constantly have to adjust them. Just the fact that you have mechanical brakes instead of hydraulic brakes would be really knock e-bikes for that because we think it's sort of a really silly decision.
Yeah, you need something that's automatically adjusting as you're going down the road. Hydraulics is the only way to go. So again, we've got really inexpensive cranks, really inexpensive pedal. We've got even though it's a branded Shimano freewheel and a branded Shimano derailleur, freewheel is not the way to go on an e-bike. You just got the ratchet mechanism spinning at high speeds almost the entire time you're riding the bike. The generic Shimano derailleur, those are best left for Walmart kids bikes. We've got this really cheap remote index shifter here to control all that. So not likely you're going to have very accurate shifting on this bike, but
now one thing I want to interject is we raised more mechanical focus. So even when we were talking about the materials, to differentiate these 2 rating things, the materials is really about the touch points. It's your tires, your frame material, it's your seat, it's your grips, touch points like that. You started even talking about the derailleurs and that stuff in the materials, but really the score for those things is in the mechanical, and that's why it gets this low score.
Yeah. So again, we've got just a lot of low components on the bike that aren't really going to produce an ideal e-bike environment.
Okay, so the next score, and this is the 3rd score on our scale, is called low maintenance, and this is how likely are you going to have to work on this bike on a frequent basis. And really, this is the impetus for us putting together this Tower score because we see hundreds of different brands of e-bikes. We'll have a couple dozen different brands and models of e-bikes in here at any time. And there's just certain bikes that you're going to have to work on a lot. And I think a lot of people, they don't understand that when they go buy an e-bike, they might get a good deal on it or it looks like shiny cool, but they're just going to have a nightmare of problems with this. So on this bike, you're going to have some issues. On the low maintenance score, we give it a 1. So we've gone into details there.
Yeah, so primarily dealing with no flat resistance in the tire. So it's relatively expensive to have your rear tire fixed, especially on a you're either going to really be struggling with that yourself, or you're going to be taking it to a mechanic and paying quite a bit every time you get a flat or a thorn. As far as I'm aware, these tires these tubes don't come pre-filled this line, and with no flat protection, you're going to deal with flats often.
And one thing there is, like, a lot of people think, well, it's a bike, so I can change the tire on a bike, it's not a big deal. But it's just much more difficult on these. You've got wires, you've got to connect, you've got it's a lot heavier.
And it tends to wedge itself into the frame. So then you got no hydraulic disc brakes. So again, we're back to mechanical disc brakes that you have to adjust every couple of rides. That's going to be a constant issue. You've got poor quality components like the cheap Pro Wheel or even Pro Wheel knockoff crankset, which will likely round out and strip out over time. You've got the inexpensive folding pedals. You've got the Shimano, even though it's Shimano branded freewheel, it's still a freewheel, it's still made out of steel, it's going to rust. It's chain drive, and it's multiple gears, so you've got cheap component shifting. So all of these things are going to require a lot of maintenance, and you're going to constantly be messing with this bike.
Yeah, that's one of the things, like, if you're going to put gears on a bike, you want to do it the right way, because a lot of these, like, cheaper bikes you'll see at Walmart, they put gears on them, they put a crappy derailleur. That's a problem on a regular bike. On an e-bike with all of the torque and everything involved, those things just go bad pretty quick.
The speed involved, I mean, the speed at which things go wrong on an e-bike when you're doing 20 plus miles an hour is so much greater than that of just pedaling down the road. So if you have a problem that causes your derailleur to wrap up into your cassette or your freewheel, it's really going to go wrong.
Yeah. Okay. But, you know, this is why we rate these bikes on 7 different scores, because it's really different on this bike from one score to the next. It's got pretty low scores on the last couple there. The next one, hill climbing ability, we actually give this a 7. Go into what's going on there.
Well, 7's relatively good, but we've got a number of factors that go into that, and one of them is it's hub motor driven with a 14 amp hour pack, so that does give it some juice. It's also got a grand gear, so if you get stuck in a position where the bike's not pushing uphill, you can shift into a low gear and you can climb. It's a speed-centric system, so that doesn't really do much for the hill climbing ability, but all those other points do, and so that's where we give the 7.
And that's an interesting thing. You'll see a lot of these e-bike companies talk about their top speed and stuff like that. You get top speed at the expense of sort of torque. And so all of a sudden you have a bike that works good in the flatlands, but as soon as you need to go up hills, you have real problems with that. Really the key here to get hill climbing ability is to have a nice powerful motor with a good, solid battery with good cells and the gearing. And this one gets it right on that. So that's why we give it a pretty good rating there. The next rating is range. Now this is how far you can go on this bike. And that's another short-sighted thing that a lot of e-bike companies do. They may give you a huge motor or whatever, but you get this little tiny battery where you're going to be able to go 10, 15 miles, and that's going to be a problem because on a regular bike you can go short distances, but on the e-bikes you tend to go on 20, 30 mile rides. And if you don't have enough battery to get there, it's just going to be a real nightmare. And the battery is actually the most expensive part of this. This is where this bike does actually pretty good as well. We give it a 9 on range. So they match, a 500 watt rear hub motor with a 48 volt system. It's like a 14 amp hour, I think 13 or 14 or 15. So it's a pretty good, system. They have an overpowered battery with the motor. So we give this a 9. On comfort, we give it a 6. Sort of go into what's involved there, right?
Well, they did put a CL rail seat on here. It's a really comfortable seat, although I would like to see this seat more on like a mountain or a road bike than an e-bike. E-bikes tend to be going pretty fast, and even though this has got a nice gel seat on it, it's not likely to give you much shock resistance when you hit a bump at high speeds. It doesn't have any suspension, but it does have these nice big cushy tires. So you're going to get a little bit of shock absorption there if you run the tire down.
And that's a critical thing. A lot of bikes don't have suspension. I mean, some of the better bikes do. It adds weight and stuff like that. But it's really critical that you have sort of some kind of cushion tires. Otherwise, you're going these high speeds, high vibrations with like a regular bike tire, you're going to get real problems. So they actually do that right here, but there's no suspension. On a heavy bike like this, you would expect to get some suspension.
And then, we get into adjustability and comfort. The bike is relatively upright. The pedal position is slightly forward. The seat does have a wide range. It goes up and down. The adjustable folding bean pole stem that they have here also goes up and down quite a bit. Does not go forward and back, so if you are a small person with short arms, it might be tough to reach, but for most people, we find that this will be a relatively easy bike to adjust.
Yeah, so this is a fixed leg. There's no adjustment from here to there, so that can be sort of an issue at times. The last rating, the 7th rating, is what we call universal, and this is how will this bike work for many different shapes and sizes of people and ages of people. On the universal, we give it a 6. Maybe discuss some points on that, Rick.
Well, so we got seat post height. This post height here, it's 28.5 inches off the ground. The step over height is 29, because this is kind of the lowest.
No, that's kind of a knot, because that's a step over height, like a regular bike.
Yeah.
This is not like what do they call it? It's like step through bike.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's not going to be great for super short people that have trouble, or people who have trouble stepping over a standard bike, because it's really not that much lower than a standard bike or it's equal to a standard bike. It does have the ability to adjust the speed and limit the speed inside the screen. The bars do not go back and forth, so it's not going to help you there. But they do go up and down, and the seat height range is roughly 9 inches.
So that's decent. We've got a pretty long stem here. It stands pretty far in there, so you can ride way down there or ride with the seat really high. And I think that does help you with the forward and back.
Yes.
So our score on that was a 6. That's not bad. And understand all of our scoring here. We're using the same scoring system to score $15,000 e-bikes, and the $995 one, Amazon or Walmart. So there's a wide range. So don't look at this like a school grade system where if you get 80s a B or 90s an A. If you get 50s, 60s, 70s, those are decent e-bikes. But it leaves room that some of the bikes do get like a 90 here. Okay, so with those 7 ratings, we basically normalize those to get this overall score, and this is out of 100. So this is 51 out of 100. On the specialty score here, it gets 48 out of 100. And really what the specialty does is it takes out comfort and universal. And the reason we do that is there's a lot of bikes that are made for a very specific purpose. Like a lot of these bike companies will have 5 different size frames, and you pick the frame that works specifically for you. And that's much more common in the regular bike world, or if you have a specific mountain bike or something like that. It's for a specific purpose. And they don't care necessarily about comfort, because you're more engaged in the bike, right? Like e-bikes are more like transportation. You kind of kick back, riding around. You don't want to be hunched over for 30 miles on an uncomfortable seat, where that gets really, really annoying fast. So, but on these specialized bikes where they are sort of more of like a pedal-assisted bike, that's why we omit those two, in our specialty score. On a bike like this, you really should be looking at the Tower e-bike score. That is a good representation. What is this thing weigh?
This bike came in at 61 pounds, which is relatively heavy again for these small form factor bikes. I think the extra fat tires and the extra fat rims and the large battery packs all factor into that. But then you got this really overbuilt frame section here and all down here. So this is going to add some weight.
So the interesting thing there is this is like a folding compact bike.
Yes.
And if you get into like folding compact bikes with regular bikes, and those things are 25, 30 pounds.
Yeah, they tend to be really lightweight, easy to maneuver, easy to
And the idea there is you fold this thing up, you throw it in your car, you fold it up, you put it on your boat, whatever, easy to store. This thing, if you were to fold this up and try to put this in a car, like one person, like you could get underneath, because you're extending like 60 pounds.
60 plus pounds.
So it's almost dangerous when they make a really heavy, like folding bike.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, okay, so overall looks, what do you think of the looks of this bike?
It's kind of it's got a generic, folding fat tire bike. There's a lot of bikes that look like this on the market. A lot of different companies that have kind of gone to this form factor, and it's popular, but as far as functionality goes with the weight and all that, it doesn't excite me.
I think for a folding bike, this actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, it looks enough like a bike, so if you're riding down the sidewalk or the boardwalk, people are probably not going to give you dirty looks. It doesn't look exactly like a motorcycle like some of these bikes look.
That's true.
You know, but, you know, it's so-so. We don't give a point rating on looks because this is very, like, subjective. Anybody like it? I may hate it.
Yeah.
Who knows? But to you, overall, for bikes that are like this, I think it's all right. The last score, and we do give this rating a 10-point score, but it's not factored into our overall tower score. It's called low proprietary risk, and what this means is it's sort of the risk if this company goes out of business or they discontinue this model. Like, what are you going to be left with? Are you going to be able to repair this bike? Are you going to be able to get parts for this bike? And this is a real concern in this industry because, you know, most of the companies, e-bike companies around are going to go out of business. I mean, there's like an e-bike graveyard for the last 20 years of the e-bike companies that have started up and gone out of business, and then the customers are just left sort of screwed. I mean, customers bring bikes into our shop. If that brand is super busy and we can't get a hold of them, they have proprietary parts, you may be out of an e-bike for 3 or 6 months. So what does this bike get on a proprietary?
It gets 5 middle of the road. I guess Sondors is diversified. Definitely researched that.
So yeah, what we mean by diversified, so overall the company is diversified. They're into motorcycles, I think they're into cars or something like that. They seem well funded.
Yeah.
So if their e-bike division, implodes, they still got other businesses.
Yeah. It's got 20 by 4 tires, so that's
These are standard.
That's pretty standard. You pretty much find a tire for this thing anywhere.
I mean, it's standard in the e-bike world. If you go into a regular bike shop, you're going to be able to find that.
Yeah, this tire size is in the bicycle world too. 20 by 4 and 26 by 4 are the fat tire bikes as well as these ones. So you'll be able to find that. You'll be able to find tubes for it. So that's not a huge deal. Standardized parts. It's got a regular shifter, regular derailleur, regular, mechanical brakes, brake pads that are probably going to be easy to source. Things like that. You're not too
Now, some of the things that you will have to worry about, because this is sort of a custom to Sondors motor.
An OE brand hub. They've got very specific integrated battery pack.
So that's something that we actually somewhat knock bikes on this rating. On the looks rating, we'll give them sort of better if it's integrated. But it's going to be much harder to replace that integrated battery because everything is proprietary just to Sondors. They go out of business. You may not be able to find a battery for your e-bike.
We've got their specific LCD screen that I've only ever seen on their bike, which we had a heck of a time adjusting, but we finally kind of got it sort of functional.
Yep. So, overall, we give this bike a 51 on the Tower e-bike score, which is, it's an okay rating. It's sort of middle of the range. That's pretty much it.
Yep, I would say so.